Welcome to the webcast, Simplified IDoc Monitoring for SAP, of course, with Libelle EDIMON or EDIMON. And I want to present today's team. My name is Bernd Bayer. I'm a Senior Solution Architect. I'm also VP of our operations here in the United States. And I'm joined by Puneet Khatri, who is going to show us the live demo in a little bit. We have some technical difficulties on connecting to the VPN. Internet seems to be a bit overloaded, but we should figure this out in the next 20 minutes by the time we get ready for the presentation. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started. So some of the highlights I want to outline before we get started is the overview of what we're going to talk about, strategies and tools to drastically reduce efforts when you manage IDocs. And you, that means you as an EDIMON responsible person, as an administrator, as an EDI manager, but also you in terms of your users, the end users who are putting in orders, eventually hitting issues. And that is also a tool for the end users that they can manage IDocs better. We're going to show some use cases, what you can actually do with an IDoc monitor. And the key point is how you can consolidate work across different transactions code within SAP that are available for managing IDocs into a single user interface. And then we're going to show the software itself. I didn't mention earlier, we don't have a formal Q&A session planned for this webinar. If you do, however, have questions, just type it in the Q&A feature. If I catch them, I'm going to answer them during the session. And if not, I'm going to answer them after the session in a separate email. So with that, let's get started. A quick introduction about who we are. Libelle is the name of our company. We are headquartered in Stuttgart, Germany. That is where the company was founded originally. And we have offices in Atlanta, in the United States, Paris, and of course, multiple offices in Germany. We have been on the market for developing, marketing, and servicing, supporting enterprise software since the mid-90s. So we have a lot of experience both in software development, software support, and we are used to work with some of the largest enterprises and corporations and organizations worldwide. So we currently have 8 of the global Fortune 50 customers, and we can really serve small customers, large customers, very small customers. But 80% of our business is carried by SAP. So we are very much focused on the SAP ecosystem. Our solution portfolio, we are a software company developing software, continue to develop, expanding it, marketing it, supporting it, and servicing it. We came out of the data replication area where we have software solutions to replicate databases that includes DB2, MaxDB, MySQL, outside SAP, MySQL, MS SQL Server. We moved from data replication into system refresh automation, and that also where our focus on SAP got dramatically expanded. We have a software that completely automates system refreshes end to end. In parallel, we were building a practice to also develop SAP add-ons that are not workflow automation like system copy, but specific functional areas in SAP. And one is our IDoc monitor. We also have an SAP monitoring add-on, and we also have a tool that helps with managing master data in SAP. These are the 3 tools we are offering around SAP add-ons, specifically ABAP-based. So IDoc, I assume everybody is familiar what IDocs are, but they are operating and sending messages within SAP systems, from SAP systems to other SAP systems, from suppliers to the SAP system. And they carry things like orders, invoices, everything that needs to have an electronic message attached, typically with a product or something that moves physically, is consolidated. The consolidated information are in an IDoc. And depending on the customer, their customers processing millions of IDocs, their customer processing tens of thousands of IDocs. And basically what happens if an IDoc doesn't get processed properly or doesn't get processed properly but with wrong information, it directly impacts the business because it could lead that orders don't get shipped, invoices don't get out, or people don't get, vendors don't get paid if it's financial information IDocs. So they are highly critical and they're hitting the business immediately where it hurts, which is orders not getting shipped, for example. So IDocs have been around since the very beginning of SAP, and they didn't significantly change. And also the challenge always has been there. There is no central place to monitor IDocs. There are some transactions that help you monitoring, BD87, other transactions, but the transactions are simply still spread across multiple different T codes, and also they are difficult to navigate. And especially if you have end users who are not necessarily having years and years of SAP experience and get a grasp of how SAP works and how you approach problems within an SAP system, they have challenges figuring out where to look for specific information. It's also no clear responsibility. There is no central IDoc control. It somehow gets dropped onto the basis team to figure out where is this. There's an EDI manager, and typically somebody who's very well versed in SAP is getting all those requests and sorts them out, which is not what that person should do in the day-to-day business. So at the bottom, you see those 5 points are listed out, and we want to do the opposite with EDIMON. We want to make the work structured. We want to make it ongoing instead of somebody's checking for issues. There's a software running that is checking for the issues for you. We want to make it fast. We want to make it really automated, and we want to make it says repetitive. It's going to be even more repetitive because we're going to run it with software. If it's manually done, it's repetitive. If it's pretty bad. If it's done by software and it is repetitive, it is a good thing because you can not really overload software that is operating on the system programmatically. So what is Libelle EDIMON? It is an ABAP-based add-on that goes into your SAP system with a transport and then is starting to collect IDoc information. But it is a standard software from Libelle that goes into SAP, and then it starts managing IDocs for you and helps you with the management of IDocs. It's a central user interface that is meant to consolidate IDoc monitoring. You still have access to all the other transactions, but you might want to consider having certain users cut off from transactions where they can do a lot of damage and just use an IDoc tool where they only see certain IDocs and they can't cause any damage for other areas depending on the security level. It's simple to use, simple to implement, and it's again both for the IDoc EDI administrator and also for the EDI users. So here are some of the transactions that are consolidated with Libelle EDIMON. It's BD87, WE5. So, and this is also demonstrating and illustrating the issue with IDoc monitoring. You can manage, or you have to manage IDocs across different areas. And if you know what you are doing, it's not too big of an issue, but not everybody has multiple years of experience and working around SAP in order to manage all of that. SAP keeps all the IDoc information in 3 main tables, in the EDIDC, EDIDD, and EDIDS. And what we basically doing is we are querying those tables regularly based on certain patterns and then provide you with insights on what's going on with your IDocs. You still have all the T codes when you want to log in, especially as an administrator, but you don't necessarily need to. So IDocs are fairly complicated, and if you didn't work with IDocs before, it's kind of overwhelming. But then with many things with SAP, it's overwhelming in the beginning, and then you figure out the system SAP put behind it, and then it's actually very easy. But there are a lot of information in IDocs. There's information about the SAP system that is sending and receiving the IDocs. If you have multiple systems, there might be multiple of them. When was it created? By whom was it created? Is it an inbound or outbound IDoc? What's the message type? Who's the sender receiver? What's the current status? All the message numbers you have in IDocs. And then it goes into the segment information. So IDocs have multiple segments which can have order information or line item information. And we query those as well, up to 3 segment areas per IDoc. We have a status history. So IDoc has a certain history. It goes from receiving certain code into a different code into another code. We query that. The message text, of course, the message class and message number. So if you have multiple distribution centers, there are qualifiers in the message to say a distribution center 49 didn't get processed, or send an order didn't get processed. So we query those message numbers, the variables. These are the four things. The error message, and then also partner system number, depending if that is an issue for you or not. So what we want to do is we want to collect the information regularly, consolidate them, refine them, filter them, present them, and give you an easy interface to manage them. It's kind of this one thing that should be in SAP, but for some reason it is not, and we want to fill that gap with our IDoc monitoring tool. So again, EDIMON is a software that is loaded in a transport, and there are a lot of customers, and it's also at the end the question, are you going to buy something like this or you do it yourself? And a lot of customers wrote ABAP scripts that are exactly trying to mimic what we are doing on a larger scale. And the problem is every time they want to make a change to their program, they have to apply a new transport. So from our end, we have a ABAP program that runs in Libelle's own namespace. So there are an IDoc collecting program, a rule engine, and a reaction engine. And then you simply change your configuration and say, oh, I want to set up an email notification upon certain statuses. You don't have to change the code for that. You just set the configuration. So there's a user layer and a core layer. So these three components, the collecting program, the rules, and the reactions, is basically saying we are collecting IDoc statuses every 20 minutes, and I'm going to get into that later. And then we have rules similar, like the concept of Outlook email filter rules. If I get an email from a certain person, put it in a separate folder as a simple example, but that's basically what our rules are doing. And then after a certain condition is met, I want to trigger a reaction, which can be as simple as an email, an SAP mail. We can trigger function modules. We have user worklists where we assign IDocs to a specific user and say, here are the 20 IDocs for today you need to fix because that's in your responsibility. And then we can also trigger things on the operating system. The IDoc collecting program. So this is the first thing when we got up and running to set up how do we collect the IDoc information. And again, remember earlier, we have these three tables where the IDoc information is stored, and we can't just load the complete table every 20 minutes. So you got to approach that a little bit more intelligently. So our collecting program runs for a specific message type, for a specific message status, or a combination. So if you know what kind of IDocs you have, the volume about that, we can steer that you only collect the information that is necessary instead of loading millions and millions of rows on a regular basis into our namespace. It's not required. It runs as a background job, and there would be multiple collecting programs depending on the message type, or you do one collecting program for all that is configurable. And then you can again segment that. You can say, I want to have an hourly job that collects the IDoc statuses from only today, but I might have a daily job that collects the IDoc statuses from the last 7 days. And there might be a weekly job that collects the IDoc statuses from the last 30 days, because there might be still unresolved IDocs sitting somewhere in the queue. And that way you organize that efficiently. And this is the way we would then query the tables and get the information out we need. This is how the rule and reaction mechanism would work. Again, we are collecting the IDocs every materials every 1 hour, depmass tables or depmass message type every 15 minutes. We apply the rules, and this is already an example you see. You specify the system, the message type, the status, and actually you don't have to type all of that in the tool, and Punit's going to show that to you later. If you hit an error, you simply click on the IDoc error and say, based on these parameters, I want to create a rule because I don't want to see that error. I mean, you're going to see it again, but you want to create a rule out of an error situation. But this is the areas and information you would see. The first 6, 7 are easy, But the segment field and control record, they're a bit more sophisticated, but this is actually where, for a lot of customers, the meat of the information is somewhere in the segment that they need. And this is the difficulty of climbing into those BD87 transactions, drilling into the segment, figuring out what went wrong with the different codes. And we do the heavy lifting for that because it is at the end the same. It's very organized. It's very structured the way SAP has this information. We're just going to approach it in an intelligent way. And then the reaction in a simple form, send an email to the message owner. That could be there's an order that didn't get processed because there's a material number that is not valid. That would be the reaction. And it sounds simple, but imagine if you don't have that, an IDoc failed, the order doesn't go out because nobody figured it out, and then somebody looks for it and then they figure it out. So with that, you're much more proactive than without. So I updated the slide deck, and it's supposed to be a little bit more pretty, and I didn't really change the background information. This was supposed to show an email, and I hope you can read a little bit, but the background is simply off in that slide. But it says in the subject, there is one IDoc issue for the message type and for this system. If you have, let's say, 20 IDocs that fail for the same reason, we would still create one email and then say there are 20 IDocs that failed for that reason. In the message, and Punit probably can show that in the email in the live system better than here, but it would say the rule that triggered the issue, the IDoc status, the message class, and then you can add specific variables out of the segment, for example, a distribution center number or order number or a material number directly into the email. So basically, whoever is responsible for IDocs can already see, oh, this is this distribution center or that distribution center, and see immediately if that is something requiring immediate attention or something that can wait for a later point or can be handled within a couple of days. And again, if you are new to IDocs, this is how SAP builds its messages. They have the standard text and then they have the placeholders in the message text, so material and then the material number with the users. And these are the variables we would query out of EDIMON in order to make sense out of the information that's in the messages. So Punit's going to show you the software in a little bit, but I want to give you the framework and the outline what we are doing in. It's easier to see it on the system, but that way you heard it once before we saw it. But we're going to show messages based on the SAP system, based on the message type, based on the IDoc status, and then we can keep drilling down into the respective IDocs from different angles. And this whole drill down and drill up is something that is not very easy if you don't have a tool like that that has all the information you query on a regular basis. So the way it looks is you log into the tool, and then each user can be set up to see only the IDocs in their responsibility, which already is much more than you could do with standard SAP means. It would give you the system ID on the highest level, the IDocs that are in red, IDocs in yellow, IDocs in green, how many IDocs, how many EDIMON reactions we triggered on that, how often we ran, and what was the last time we checked this specific system with our collecting program. Now, if you simply double click on this, you would get the next layer down, which would be the message type, and again, which are red, yellow, and green based on the message type. After that, you would drill down even more, and then you would get the statuses. What of those areas are in 51? What of them are in 29? Which are yellow, red, and green again? And then finally, the last one, you can always directly drill to the lowest layer, but you might want to have those additional layers above because somebody in materials doesn't care about finance. So you want to separate those areas. Here it gives you the IDoc number, the message text. It pulls in information about segments in the table, so you can pull in your material number or your distribution center number directly into the cockpit. And this would be the IDoc details with the specific IDoc number and all the information you actually need in order to make sense of what's coming and what's happening in the SAP system. The last drill down is the IDocs grouped by messages. So this would be the same thing as before, except if you have, let's say, 1,000 failed IDocs and 990 of them failed for the same reason and 10 failed for 10 other reasons, you would see only 2 or 3, in this case 10 lines, one with 900 IDocs and then 10 lines with one IDoc each, and then you can again drill down. And the reason this is very important is we offer mass management of IDocs, so you can select multiple IDocs and then mass update certain segment information if you have multiple issues in a specific mass processing run that potentially ran. You can reprocess IDocs from within EDIMON if any IDoc that utilizes a batch input can be reprocessed in the foreground. Otherwise, we can reprocess it in the background. The option I mentioned earlier, we can mass change IDoc information. Puneet is going to change that, but you also see the other options. You can process multiple IDocs, you can mass archive IDocs, and you can also delete IDocs. And this is a neat feature to mass change based on certain segment fields. There can be conditions met, update this field if we have certain input fields. It's quite neat. If you did that manually once, you appreciate how this can be done manually. And I saw there was one question in the Q&A feature. If we support monitoring both inbound and outbound IDocs, yes. So the question was here, do we support inbound and outbound? We load and read all the information in the IDoc tables. So that means it has to hit the SAP system before we actually able to see that there is an issue. If there are IDocs that hit issues before it hits SAP, there's things we can do about that, but it's more difficult because then we have to have an other algorithm that is then triggering potentially IDoc or EDIMON, but that is it has to be in the SAP system. So everything that's inbound or outbound to SAP is covered in EDIMON. I mentioned the mass archiving. Again, you have the filtering function, and then you select multiple IDocs, and then you can mass archive them. One more concept is the EDIMON worklists. So we have the EDIMON administrator covered. They are happy that they have more availabilities to manage IDocs, mass manage IDocs. And the worklist is something specifically for the people who need to fix IDocs. And let's say you have 50 people entering orders and they all work with SAP and they all can cause IDoc failures because they type in wrong material numbers. We can assign failed IDocs based on rules directly to a specific users. So they can pull up EDIMON as an end user and see there are 30 IDocs in the area they need to fix. And it's kind of a work queue. We put the IDocs on for specific users. So everybody who logs on sees his respective work lists. And we have actually even the possibility that customers have their end users configured only to see the work list because they don't want them to deal with anything else, but they see a list of items in the work list. And in the work list, there is an option to update values that you predefined, that you select specific segment information for the users and say, I want to update this field. You can update this field, but nothing else would be visible in your work list. The other concept that is a newer feature that was created after the worklist, since it was positively received from our customers, we expanded that, is an EDIMON Forms. So an IDoc can have 400, 500 or sometimes 800 different fields with information, and many times you only need 20 or 30 fields that are relevant for the business. And this is exactly what the EDIMON forms are. You hit an issue with an IDoc, you go in the EDIMON, and then you open the EDIMON, the IDoc, not in BD87, you open it with an EDIMON form. And that form is pre-configured to only show you information that was pre-selected and pre-configured. And then you can update the information directly in that form. The rules can be very simple. They can get very complicated. With that, you can export and import the rules. Typically, we set this up in development. We would need some IDocs to work with in order to run it. Import it in QAS, whatever was configured for development, and then into production. And that also makes it easy to maintain the rules in an Excel field where you have Excel sheet where you have more oversight on the specific rules. Finally, security is an issue with IDocs because by default, if you give a user access to BD87, they can do a lot what they shouldn't do. So what we do is we give them access to certain information, but only information we decide you would have made available to those customers, and these are whitelists and blacklists. And we can also import the user security permissions that certain users just can't see certain information. So our collecting program wouldn't even be able to collect that. And that's also can be set up. So this is the last introductory slide I had on the architecture, and I want to slowly move the presentation role to Puneet. Before I do that, a quick summary, what I introduced before we look at the live demo. So we talked about the generic issues you have with IDocs, a couple of live use cases, we're going to see that in the demo, but how the work that is distributed in multiple transaction codes can be consolidated into a single T code, and you see all those features like mass updates or drilling down. These are things you have to do manually and you have to figure out manually yourself. It's not easy to get to, and this is what we think provides a tremendous value for our customers. So with that, I would hand it to Puneet. Puneet, I hope you figured out your connectivity issues to VPN, but I let you take it away. And Puneet, we don't hear you yet.
Yes, but can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, I can connect to the machine now. Let me share my screen. Okay. I hope it's visible. All right. So just to start with the EDIMON software, how we do the EDIMON software implementation, as Bern mentioned, that that's a set of transports which goes into the SAP system. It can go to the one system, which can be a central monitoring place, and then you can connect to the external system also and monitor that external system, provided it's the software is installed there as well. Since this software is specific for SAP only, so that external system should also be an SAP system. We cannot install this software on any other non-SAP system. So it's bound to SAP specific transports. And then once transports go into the system, we do some post implementation tasks to configure it. It's pretty fast. One system we can do up and running in less than 1 day with all the configuration. Again, there are some dependencies based on what you want to achieve, what are the different configurations or rules you want to create that might expand those implementation or configuration part. But the tool itself will be up and running in less than 1 day with the required post configurations part. And once the tool is available, then there will be transaction which will be available for you, which can directly take you to the EDIMON cockpit. So I will tell you, this is the transaction which is called /EDIMON /Libelle/EDIMON, and I have that set up in the favorites. When I double click on this, you can see that this is the T code and program transaction /Libelle/EDIMON. Because when we install the software, we bring Libelle namespace also with it, and that transaction code created in that only. So all the data which we are collecting from the SAP standard tables, we are not directly making any changes on those table until unless you are processing the IDocs through this tool. Again, when you process the IDoc through this tool, in the background, it uses the SAP standard functionality, and that functionality basically make the changes in the SAP tool, but sorry, SAP tables. But all the data which we are collecting, we are reading the data from the SAP tables and then putting that in the Libelle namespace tables and then presenting the details here. So this is the cockpit. When you access these transactions, you will come in this cockpit overview where you can see that we have currently two systems maintained. TA1 system is my external system where I have the software installed, and TA2 is my local system where there also I have software installed, and I'm monitoring both system in one central location. So that's the same thing which you can do in your landscape as well. If you have multiple systems where you want to monitor the IDocs, you can do the software installation there and then monitor it at one location. Now in this cockpit also you can see at the top, you can see this is the filter area. The data we are collecting, I'll tell you how the data is being collected, but once the data is collected, then you can use this filter in case you want to filter it out any specific IDoc after the data is being collected. But let me take one step back and tell you how we are collecting the data. So there is a EDIMON check program. In the drop down in EDIMON, you can see there's a first option which is called check program. When you click on this here, we have to fill out the details about the IDocs which we have to monitor. Now you can here you can define where you want to run this check program, whether it's external system or local system. For example, here I'm selecting local. Then here you have to define which message type you want to monitor. So there will be a separate job for or separate check program for each message type. You can define multiple jobs, uh, but each job will collect data for a specific message type. So you have to fill that message type information, basic type. If you have defined any basic type, then you can do that also. Also, you can define a range of status which you want to monitor. Again, there are different possibilities about the range. You can give selective numbers, you can give a complete range, you can exclude single values or exclude a range. Everything you can do it here. Um, but in this case, I'm just giving a complete range between status 1 to 70 and monitor everything between these two range, this particular range. And then here I have to define that how long back I want to go and collect the data. And this is really important for you in order to define the periodicity of this particular job. You have option to run this as a foreground as well as run this as a background. And the third option is you can define a job and run this as a periodic. So it's up to you whether you want to run it in foreground. You can just provide that details here that you want to collect, for example, last 1 day of data, and then just click on execute. When you execute it, it will try to read all these tables. As you can see at the bottom that it's reading EDIDC, and similarly it will read EDIDS and all, and then give me the number of IDocs which are being uh, processed in last 1 day, and then give me the result here, and that result will be available in the cockpit also. Similarly, you can go long back as well, 30 days or 40 days, but I would suggest this once we do the implementation, we run it for a longer period of time, and then we define this as a background job. And this background job, when you run this in background, you can also define that the periodicity of this job. For example, this is going to run in background, and it will collect the data in the background. Now here you can define the periodicity after event. You can define the date and time. You can here define the period values. When do you want to run? Again, it depends on your criticality of that particular IDoc, some IDocs you want to collect every 5 minutes, and some of the IDocs you want to collect probably every 4 hours or once in a day. So there will be a multiple jobs, background jobs running in the background based on the periodicity and keep collecting the data. So you don't have to run this program every time uh, in the foreground and collect the data. Rather, you define the background jobs and they are keep running in the system and collecting the data. So here you will see the information at the in the right side that these are the currently jobs which are running for these three message types, and these are the number of jobs which ran since today morning, and then when it ran last time. So this timing currently this is my system which is based out in Germany. So you see this time in the evening, but you will see the latest job time for this particular message type and when it was ran last. The brief details about the jobs is available here. Then we have this section called link to transactions. This is helpful for you when you want to troubleshoot specific IDocs. Uh, Once you have this software and once you are comfortable with the software, you will slowly phase out the SAP standard transactions in order to troubleshoot this, because everything is available in this tool. You don't have to go and open a separate session and go into this W05 or BD87 to troubleshoot the error, because everything you will see in this cockpit. So these jobs, as I mentioned, they are running in background and they are collecting the data. Here you see the overview, number of message types which are being collected, number of IDocs status, number of IDocs in red, yellow, and green, and when it was last checked. Now, just to go in more detail, you double click on in this entry, and then you will see the different message types which are for which data is being collected. Again, in the last column, you can see when it was the data was last collected. If you have a job running in the background, you will see that the recent job runtime when it was collected, but there might be some data which is collected long back. Maybe that data was collected by running a foreground program once. But yeah, these are the different number of message type which we are collecting, and the number of IDocs which are red, yellow, and green. Now I can go in more details, and I'll select the orders IDoc. I'll see the different status of IDocs which are being collected, and for that also we have different number of IDocs in total mentioned. So we structure here in based on the status of the IDoc. And then here further, if you go in status 51, here you will see all the IDoc which are failed with status 51, and details about that particular IDoc. So most of the details which are available when you go into BD87 and check for the error for that particular IDoc which failed and check the error details, everything is available in this particular screen inside the cockpit. So all the information about that particular IDoc, why it is failed, what was the document number, what was the IDoc number, direction of the IDoc, whether it's inbound or outbound. So as mentioned by Bernd, that uh, we monitor both IDocs, provided that IDoc should be in the SAP system, whether it's inbound or outbound. We collect both type of directions and maintain it here. You will see whether it's inbound or outbound. Um, there are three fields or three columns which are customizable, with which you can get the detail from inside the IDoc. For example, you see the document number that is customized, which we did in this tool, and then you can define what information from that IDoc you want to get and present it here in the overview. Because this document number is available somewhere in the segment or control record. So that information also you can display it here just for your reference, or if if it helps you to identify any specific partner or any specific plant or any specific information from the IDoc, you can do that. Similarly, you can see that here, this is the second and third which we configured here, where we are seeing the payment terms and what is the partner number. If the partner number is available in the IDoc, then it will be visible here in this too. So you don't have to go into BD87 or W05 to identify those information, which will be helpful. So this is customizable. It's based on the message type. You can do that for orders. You can define those three columns can be document number or something. For MATMAS, it can be something else. But by default, we are giving you error information, IDoc number, and all these parameters numbers also. So this is the last screen of the IDoc where you get this information. Now, once we collect the details and once we collect all the IDoc information, these are being populated every time, every 5 minutes, based on the periodicity of the job, and you will get the latest results. You don't have to run that job in the foreground every time to get the latest results. So once you see the IDocs here, the next step is always how you fix it. You go into different transactions, you change the values in the segments for specific IDocs, and then you process it again. So this is this all steps you can do it right here from this screen. You can select the IDoc, and then if you go into IDoc information, you can see you can process the IDoc. If you want to just reprocess the IDoc, if you want to set the IDocs to status 68, that also you can do it. You can delete the IDoc. You can delete any specific segment of the IDoc. Also, in case there is any scenario where you have multiple segments of the IDocs, where you have the uh, maybe product uh, product code number defined in those segments, and then out of those 10 product code, one code is wrong. That information you can delete from the IDoc and process it from this screen itself. So you don't have to switch different screens to do that. Also, as Bern mentioned, that you can do the mask change of the IDoc. So you can select the IDocs which are failed because of the same reasons. You can select all of them, and then let me sort it out first and then show you how you can do that. Let's cancel this, and you can sort it out based on this. So all these IDocs I sorted out like you do this in Excel sheet. So these are the IDocs, for example, they are failing because of the same error message. I select all of them together and do the IDoc mask change, because most likely they are failing for the same reason, and you have to change the same segment and field value on these kind of IDocs. So you can put that segment information, field information, and the new value which will be updated on all these IDocs all together and save it. And once you save it, then uh, you can select all these uh, all these IDoc which are failed, and then you can reprocess them together. So these processing will happen also in the background, and that will do the mass processing and mass saving of those mass changing of those IDocs. So this is one scenario where you can manage your IDocs and fix your IDocs. Also, if you want to get more detailed information, and if you want to see all the information which you used to see in BD87, W11, or different EDIMON transactions, then you can select that particular IDoc and click on Display IDoc. It will pop up in a screen, and it will give you all these SAP standard transactions uh, available here, and you can just simply select what transactions you want to go, and it will directly take you there with pre-filling that IDoc information. So it will auto-populate that particular IDoc number, as you can see that, and it will directly go into that IDoc, and you can troubleshoot, and you can identify if you want to know about more information for that particular IDoc. Once you make your or do your troubleshooting here, then you can come back, and it will take you right there at the same EDIMON screen. So this will help you, or it will be more managed way where you can handle your IDocs in day-to-day basis, rather than going into or opening different windows and copying the IDoc number from one screen and pasting it somewhere else and then troubleshooting it. So it will definitely solve your uh, whole management of the IDocs. Then one other thing which Bern mentioned about the forms. Those forms are customized forms which is available inside this EDIMON tool only. Uh, Let me give you one example of that form which is developed by us, and it's completely customizable what you want to show in those forms. As Bern mentioned, that this is useful where you have hundreds of segments and all of those segments are not important for you to see. You want to see only specific segments in order to identify the problem or the cause of this particular IDoc. So you can define that those kind of segments which will be helpful for you rather than seeing all 100 segments. And then again, you can click on display IDocs. I will go here, display in forms. All the available forms which you are defining will be available in the drop down list. You can create as many as forms you want. You can create your own format of the form, what you want to see in the header, footer, and the body of that particular form, and this will be available in this drop down list. So for this scenario, I have one form already available. I'll just select that form and press OK. It will open one window where I will see all the segments which is defined in the form. And this is the format where you can define header, body, and the footer of the form. So this is very structured way of seeing an IDoc with all the available information. And also you have possibility where you can change change the information right here in this screen and save that information after looking at all the required information for that particular IDoc. So this will also help you to manage your IDocs very easily. And also here in this forms, you can define which fields you want to keep it in edit mode and which field you want to keep it in display mode. For example, here I cannot change this value, but I can change the payment terms only because this is only available for edit mode. And all other information is just for my purpose where I want to see what is the when it was created, what is the document number, what is the quantity, and all this information. And this is completely customizable. That is available in the EDIMON tool in customizing section where you can create your own forms, or you can uh, edit the form also, which is available by or created by somebody else. Or when we do the implementation, maybe we can help you to create one form and then you can edit that later based on your requirement. So this is the forms. And then uh, the next thing is once we collect everything, there is a second phase or second part is that creating a rule on top of that, so that you don't have to sit in front of this tool and monitor the IDocs. Rather, you can create a rule, and then that rule will send a notification to your emails or respective person's email. So for that, if you want to create a rule on based on this particular IDoc, then you can just simply select this and then just click on create rule. It will auto populate all the required information in this form. You can delete these information also if you want to create a generic rule. It's totally up to you how complex rule you want to create or how generic you want to create the rule. Just an example that I can create a rule on top of message type as orders, and then that will be a generic rule. I don't have to fill all this information, and this rule will capture all the IDocs in the orders message type, which is with IDoc status 51. So all the failed IDocs with the status 51, this rule will conditions will be matched. And then once the conditions are matched, then we go into the notification tab where it can trigger an email alerts, or there are different type of notification or execution you can do based on the condition. So this is the first is a condition. As I mentioned, you can go as complex as you want. For example, if you want to create a condition with some specific values inside the control record, you can just put a field name and value. You can go inside the segment of that particular IDoc, and if you want to make a condition that okay, if this IDoc which is with message type orders and IDoc status 51, but if it's belong to a specific plant, then if that plant number is maintained in the segment somewhere or control record, you can put that as a condition in this area. And here also you can give a range for that particular field, and that will be part of condition. So once the conditions are matched, then you go to into the notification tab. We have three different type of notification. One is the email, which is standard email, will come into your Outlook, whatever the email address you define. It can be a single person or it can be a complete group or team where it will send a notification. Then SAP mail is a SAP message. You have a SAP inbox also with your user ID associated. So if you are working on something else and if there is an IDoc which is captured, you will see the pop-up message wherever you are working that this particular IDoc which is failed, and some information about that particular IDoc will be available. You will click on that message and it will directly take you into the SAP inbox, and you will see more information in that inbox. Whatever information you get in email, you can get in SAP email also. And then there is a CMail, which basically create an automatic ticket inside this EDIMON tool, just to track the process of that IDoc, which is failed, and how who is working on it and what is the current status of that particular IDoc. Is just some small auditing for our auditing purpose. It will create a ticket. Then in the last section, if you can define your own text about that particular IDoc. You can set your own message. Also, there is a possibility in this where you can get information from the IDoc itself. You can define as many as segment and field here in this information, and it will just capture that value and give you that information in the email also. So that will also give you an overview about what plant or what specific partner this IDoc belongs to in the email itself, rather than you go and figure it out for which person or for which plant this particular IDoc belongs to. And then based on that, you can simply assign that IDoc or send that email alert to that responsible person. Once the rule is created, it will automatically is active, and whenever the job collect that IDoc, when the condition matches, then this rule will trigger and send an email alert to the responsible person. So you don't have to create an Excel sheet or send an email manually. This tool will do that for you. Then we have an option also to execute any specific report, a Z report, or any SAP standard report also, which will trigger and fix that IDoc for you. Again, it depends. If you already have that report, you can define it here. If you need our help, then we can also do it for you with our feasibility and based on all the requirement gatherings and everything. But here you can trigger the function, module, job, or program that will also get triggered in the background and fix or do certain actions on that particular IDoc in the background. And then there are this tab, which is Worklist. As Zabern mentioned, that there is a possibility, or we have a different section or functionality where you can assign the specific IDocs to the person, and that will be that person's user's dedicated area where he or she can work on his IDocs. So if you have a big team and each person is responsible for any specific area of the IDoc, then they don't come into this cockpit area. They can rather go into the Worklist area, which I will show you, where they can just log in, go into that transaction, and they will see all the transactions, which are all the IDocs which are assigned to them, and they can work on those IDocs only. So that is also a separate functionality. Now let me go to that Worklist area, and that is we also have a possibility or security feature in there where you can limit the whole view. If you are not supposed to watch the IDoc for message type or any other field, there is a possibility where we can limit whole view based on the user role or username also. Now let me take you to the worklist area where you can see the IDocs, which is assigned to a specific user. Let me see. For example, let's see the user and Bloom, and I go to work details, and here you can see that all the IDocs which are assigned to this particular user, and that user will directly log in into the worklist area and do fix that IDoc. All the features which are available in the cockpit, like processing the IDoc, displaying the IDoc in the form, editing the IDoc, everything is available in this worklist area. So that's more dedicated space where large team who's monitoring the IDoc can monitor the IDocs. Uh, this is just a high-level overview about this tool. We can go more in detail with separate sessions if you are interested, and then we can talk about specific scenarios and answer your all technical questions. But for now, this is a high-level overview, and yeah, you can ask any questions if you want in the questions dashboard. Uh,
Great.
that's it from my side, Ban. Thank you.
Great, Puneet. I'm gonna maintain the schedule. I have two more things I want to share with the audience. So let me go back to my slide deck. And again, Puneet, great presentation as always. Thank you very much. And by the way, if you decide to go with the tool, Puneet is also our lead engineer leading implementation. So you heard from the right person about this tool. So the question is make or buy. This is what I have as my second last slide. Is you can certainly try to develop something yourself. The question is how long is it going to take you and how is the quality of the development, considering that you are probably one or two or three persons developing. We already did this. We maintained this for multiple customers, so it has all the advantages of a standard software. It is really quick to implement. It can be up and running in as little as 3 days. We do training implementation. Depending on how complicated your environment is, certainly small customers, we get this done in a week or 10 days. Larger customers simply depend, but it's not a week-long or months-long consulting engagement you would need. It is ready to go. It is available. Transport is there, just needs to be put in. And then we have been doing software for more than 20 years. We know how to do software. And in the meantime, we also offer money back guarantees. And with everything going on these days, we are also offering a subscription pricing for EDIMON. So if you want to sign up for this on a monthly basis, we can certainly accommodate that as well. So a quick summary on the EDIMON. So it gives you the central cockpit that is not available in a standard SAP implementation. We want to provide that. The automatic notifications to the business owners, I think, is the biggest single value by itself, because it is the one thing that is missing, that nobody knows if an IDoc fails or not unless you're looking for it. It helps you automatically correct with function modules. It makes work faster, it makes the business more efficient, and it's really fast in terms of return on investment, because it hits orders, it hits where it hurts. So you can't really afford those things if they are avoidable. And then up and running in as little as 3 days. Again, if you have any questions, our names and contact informations are there. You can also reply directly to Jillian Newberry, who was sending you the invite. We're gonna share a recording of this webcast, also of the other webcasts we held this week, in an email probably sometimes tomorrow, along with a copy of the slide deck. With that, I want to thank everybody again for attending, for spending time with us, and we hope to hear from you in the near future. Thanks everybody, and bye-bye.